Commissioner Andrew Haggerty would like to invite you to his weekly breakfast meeting that takes place every Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. at Danny's Diner, located at 4690 Trans Mountain Road. Every week he has a different speaker who will be discussing topics of interest for the community. So if you live in the Northeast, West Side, or anywhere else in the county, come and join us for the breakfast meeting.
Don't wait in line, pay online. Visit the Financial Recovery Division website at http://www.epcounty.com/budget/financialrecovery.htm to make your payments online or find out more about our kiosk locations. We now accept payments on misdemeanor, felony, and justice of the peace cases.
You can now watch Commissioners Court meetings on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and search for El Paso County Commissioners or El Paso County, Texas. Subscribe to our channels to see our latest videos.
Did you know that you can save money on the cost of your medications? And doing so is easy. In 2015, the County of El Paso launched a prescription discount card program from coast to coast. The cards are available to all El Paso County residents free of charge and everyone qualifies. You can pick up a card at any county office location, Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, or Target pharmacies, or simply print the card at www.coastrx.com. Happy savings!
Did you know the County of El Paso's Purchasing Department is responsible for ensuring that all items and services needed by various county departments are purchased in the manner required by the state of Texas? Whether through formal sealed bids or smaller dollar quotations, the county purchasing team is dedicated to finding the best contracting return on your taxpayer dollars. Additionally, the Purchasing Department is responsible for the tracking of inventory within the county and properly disposing surplus through public auctions. For questions about how to become a vendor and compete for county contracts, or to learn more about public auctions, please contact us at telephone number 915-546-2048.
The 346th District Court Judge Angie Juarez Barriz started the El Paso Veterans Treatment Court program in 2012 for veterans and active service members that have been arrested and charged with a felony or misdemeanor criminal offense. To be considered for the specialty court, the statutory criteria includes be a veteran or current member of the United States Armed Forces, including a member of the Reserves, National Guard, or State Guard, and suffer from a brain injury, mental illness, or mental disorder, including PTSD, or be a victim of military sexual trauma, all occurring or resulting from military service. Call Sylvia Serna, Veterans Program Director, at 915-546-2119, or email her at sserna@epcounty.com for any information.
Did you know that the County of El Paso's fixed asset control and inventory disposal is handled through the Purchasing Department? Throughout the course of each business year, the county holds live public auctions to dispose of aged equipment, vehicles, furniture, and other items that are no longer needed. To find out about upcoming auctions or to learn more about the county's inventory disposal process, contact the Purchasing Department at telephone number 915-546-2048.
Good morning, everyone. Today, we're just going to wait for IT. Good morning. Thank you. It is 9:34 a.m. Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, January 25th, 2018. Commissioners Court is meeting in special session. Regular agenda, item 2. Pursuant to the Texas Local Government Code, section 115.021, audit and settle all accounts against the county shown on the attached listing and direct payment of those accounts.
Good morning. Do we have any items to discuss? Any questions from the commissioners?
Typically, that's on the consent agenda.
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Pettis?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Hegarty?
Aye.
Judge vote?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 3, pursuant to the Texas Local Government Code, section 114.023, 114.024, 114.025, and 114.026, please accept the attached presentation and the interim financial report for the month ended December 31st, 2017. The interim financial report is located on the internet at.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioner. My name is Claudia Melendez with the Financial Reporting Division. I'm going to present the unaudited interim financial report for the month ended on December 31st, 2017. This slide presents the condensed financial statements for the month of December 2017. This report was published on the Sunday newspaper. Revenues. This is revenues by fund type collected by the county. The general fund is highlighted to easy understand. Here is the slide shows the change in revenue receipts and compared with the same month of the last fiscal year, the same month. For the most part, the general fund revenue collection are following a similar trend to the year's collections. The next slide will explain the major factor contribute to the difference in revenues compared with last year, the same month. The two major changes that we have right now in the revenue is property taxes. The property taxes is a timing issue. It's affected by when the consumers pay the taxes and when the city of Paso send the money to us. The other thing is that charge for services is a delay in billing received for federal prisoner reimbursement program. And this is at 5 million and 4 million that decrease in revenue in comparison with the previous the same month previous year.
So the money's expected, it just hasn't shown up
Yes, as expected. The expenditure for this month is 19 millions. The total to the year is 50 millions. The general fund is highlighted. This chart shows the change between expenditure in comparison with 2017. The chart shows the increase in expenditure for the year 2018 and the month of December in comparison with the 17. This month we have 19.2 million of expenditure in comparison with 18.4 million from last year. These charts show the percentage of expenditures compared with the remaining general fund balance.
I have a real quick question. I know that we have had some items on the agenda to pay for some costs that we were not anticipating. Is there any way to show that difference in what it is that we are? I know some services might increase in cost and that just might be from one year to the other, but any new expenses that we were not budgeted for and where that difference is? I wonder if in the future we could
We will include that in there.
Okay.
Also too is I think we can change that chart to where it provides a little bit more information, to where we provide breakdown between what's personnel and operating expenditures.
Yeah. That would be helpful, just to know, so that we have every month an outlook on where these increases are coming from and help us plan for the next.
It might unanticipated might not be driving it, so in recent years, we've done plant expenditures for new levels, and so that's what you drive the trend. Is it something we appropriated, anticipated, but is above and beyond last year's normal?
And that would be helpful to know, whether it's new or just an increase somewhere.
Well, we always budget at the very least, usually additional $4 million, because that's what it goes up around. So we're going to spend more every year because there's more tax base.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. And this graph we can show where is the 50% of the expenditure from the year. Almost half is in public safety, 25% is administration of justice, and 22% is general government expenditures for the total expenditure for the general. The fund balance prediction, which we base this graph on for the future and in history, on the history's revenues. We expect like a 5% increase every year. We project 5% every year increase in the revenues, and 4.9% on the expenditure for the future, for the 5 next years.
Can I add something right here? So myself and Mr. Dion remain in regular communication, and him and his team are working on the earliest fund balance and revenue estimates you're ever going to see in this county's history. We'll get an update on that during our budget kickoff in February. But one of the things Mr. Dion asked us to do, and we'll help him, is he doesn't have a great amount of predictability with one-time expenses that we've appropriated in the budget. As we've added transportation projects and SIB loans, giving him that predictability of how we think that's going to materialize. So you can see where he's estimated the FY17 fund balance at $83 million, FY18 at $84 million. So going up just a hair, another $1 million. And he's just asked for our assistance that as we're aware of new appropriations and routine ongoing expenses that are extraordinary and will become normal in future years, get some assistance so that he can just develop that fund balance in the future. We'll use New Brain to help do us some forecasting, but we can't kick it off our new forecast in New Brain until we close out the fiscal year, which is coming up really close in the next few weeks.
And that's it for today. Thank you for your time.
Questions?
Questions?
Appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Could we have a motion to accept, please? Thank you.
Second.
Commissioner Flores?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Hegarty?
Aye.
Judge Vogt?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4, discuss and provide direction on the Employee Fitness Center design for the unused space in the lower level of the county courthouse.
It's funny because she turned around and they weren't there. I thought that was funny. Sorry. I'm allowed to laugh. I'll be scolded, sir.
Morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Morning, Judge. Morning, Commissioners.
Morning. Morning.
Today, as you know, we've been working on a wellness center for the county. We have several steps that will be brought before the Commissioner as we continue progressing through the phases. Today, we have Sam presenting on what the architect meeting looked like. He actually has some designs that he'd like to share with the court. Of course, no action will be taken today. It's more for direction and feedback to see if we're on the right path, and then we'll bring that design back to a regular Commissioners Court meeting in the near future.
Morning, Judge, Commissioners. Like Melissa said, that we're here. The purpose of this meeting today is to inform the court of where we're at on the Employee Fitness Center process. We're at the design phase right now. We have been able to create a pre-plan as far as operations are concerned, develop range of strategies, discuss fees, access, security, the makeup of the events that we'd be holding throughout the year. We met with the architect, in this case was Carl Daniels Architect Services, and gave them our plan for operations, and from that they developed a floor plan is what we want to show you today. We're looking for any input from the Commissioners Court or direction from this point so we can still make the changes to the design. Then we'll bring that back to the court with a full design, color photographs on where we're going to go from that point forward. So if I can, I'll jump right into it.
Thanks.
Okay, so what you see right here is the, if it's okay, because I need to skip through it. What you see right here is our current lower level, the outdoor area of the courthouse. This is the what I want to call the left outdoor fitness area. The center part is going to be the gymnasium. The right is going to be like a public event area. Okay. This is the floor plan. Right here is the existing building. Here's the cafeteria. The elevators will be right here. You come out, go right here. There'll be a hallway. This is the event area. This side right here is the fitness area. And then right in the middle would be the gymnasium. Now it's a little bit difficult to see, and I'll blow up the next picture here in just a second, but I'd like to talk to you about what this is right here. This event area, purpose of that is to be able to hold events. You can hold weddings, receptions, you can have media with the commission, you have the media events, you have meetings, anything in that particular area. The open space right here on the side, you can see these, it'd be like chairs and couches, tables, like the cabanas like you'd have over near a swimming pool, those kind of shade structures in that particular area. There's stairs here. This would be emergency exits. There'll be, this is the, there's dirt area that's like step downs from the top with it. On the outside of that is the barrel structure with it. We're actually going to be putting some structures right there so you can actually go and see into the facility.
So it won't be enclosed, it'll be it'll remain open? It'll
remain open, but it will be, you won't be able to see into it from outside. And then of course this is the open area. There is access, or would be access from the cafeteria area, and then access from here. What we actually envision is this would be an area that would be reserved, like somebody reserves a pavilion, they would reserve this location for the event, so somebody would be responsible for that particular area. We have, we've been, as part of our planning process, we've been talking with our security personnel, and so we kind of make sure we're identifying any security concerns as we're doing the design of this facility.
And would that, I'm sorry to interrupt again.
Sure.
Would this be, you had mentioned weddings, so we would rent this out like the pavilion and it would go into the evening hours and weekends as well?
We don't have anything set up for the weekends and evenings right now. It doesn't prohibit us from doing that, but we've actually got this during regular court operations. So right now the court holds weddings and things like that in their offices. They could actually do that here and bring more people in if they would like. But it's not limited to that. It could be used for anything as far as any needs of the county employees or county departments.
If I could just interject there, when we did some very preliminary work asking the court for input before we met with an architect early on, this was actually, I believe, incorporated based on feedback from the court to have a public event area to make use of that space that it was unused space and that they'd like the availability for a public event space and that it could be rented like the pavilion.
One of the things we saw was there's a lot of events that's held out here in this lobby area, and it's packed with people. You could actually move this to that location, and it would work unless it's raining, of course. On this side here, this is actually a walking track and an open event area, which will actually have a soft floor so that you can conduct exercise classes, Zumba classes, spinning classes, things of that sort. or people can come in here and just walk through that facility. These are benches that are located around there, and that right there is walking past to be able to cross over equipment over the track area. Access to that would be controlled by this door right here. This is where it'd be members only, members of the facility. You'd have a card access here. Once you get access there, you got access to the entire gym, and then over to this event area. So the next photograph I'm going to do is I'm going to take and blow up that portion right there.
And is that area enclosed, or is
Yes.
it is?
This area is enclosed right here. This is not enclosed, but in one of our options we have a canopy that would cover that area. Okay, so this is, I'll start right here with this doorway going in that area, is that doorway right there. So the access to the outdoor fitness area is through that door. With it, this is a like a countertop where we could have employees sit there, like if we're having a major event, we could greet employees at that location. This is an office that would be our wellness coordinator to be able to do office work and coaching, meetings, those kind of things. Then you come into the gym area. I'll start right here. This is the locker room, men's locker room, and shower facilities. The lockers would go all the way around the walls here, a couple of sinks. The showers have actual changing rooms in them, so they could be enclosed. On that, we have 2 showers at those locations, urinals, and a toilet over here. On this side, same design. This is a female's restroom. It is lockers again, 2 showers, and same setup. This right here would be a water heater room and like a maintenance room for cleaning supplies. As far as the gym itself, this is what we had designed as far as the equipment is concerned, which would involve treadmills, cardio, and free weights with it. The idea is this area right here would be glass, this wall would be glass, that wall would be glass, give the idea of kind of an open area. And the roof would be a high roof, it would go all the way to the walking path that you walk into from the courthouse. So it's going to have the feel of being larger than it actually is. The idea is that we would have the windows where you can see out, but you can't see in, and we could have the ability to put curtains across here in case there's events happening here. We could actually close that off if necessary. But then it'd have treadmills lined up over here, and then cardiovascular on this side, and equipment along this area. So we've actually gone to the detail of identifying which piece of equipment would go in which particular area, the cost of that equipment, the design, to make sure that we could have the proper electricity or connections needed for those types of equipment in those areas. So a couple things that I want to bring to your attention that we saw is in the original design, we've already requested some changes to this area here to make sure we have a counter to the hallway. So in case this needs to be used on the event center, if we're having to greet people, we wanted to make sure it had a countertop on that side. We wanted to enlarge this room a little bit, put some storage back here for some wellness equipment, things like that that would be needed and need to secure. We have a large generator going into this area here for the facility, and we believe we can increase that with some storage. What is changed is the stairs for emergency exits, because the only way to get out of there at this particular time is through the elevator to come out here and go to those stairs. So we're going to need to put some stairs each side in case we need to get emergency access. For security purposes, this will probably be emergency access, so we wouldn't be able to come in from that portion. We have, like I said, we have put together a planning committee that has been working on this for several months now, And I do have a couple members that have joined us today I'd like to identify. We have Natalia Chaparro. She's our most vocal member of the committee. We have Andrew Gers, who's our wellness coordinator. Michael Martinez, our contract manager. And we have, periodically, we have personnel from the IT department, from security, from facilities, and we've been getting input from all these departments as far as any concerns or issues that may arise. And then, of course, our project engineer is Melina, as well as from the Public Works Department is here to also answer any questions that you may have on this. So again, what we're looking for is, here's what we anticipate the design with a few small changes in there. We think this is doable as far as our budget is concerned and with the goals that we had established early on. But we wanted to make sure the commission was comfortable with this before we move forward to the final design, and then we would bring that back to the commissioner's court for final.
Have we looked into what the cost difference would be to actually enclose both sides, so that and that may be cost prohibitive, but
Originally, when we first started talking about this a few years ago, we looked at that and we were in the starting range of about $3 million just to put a ceiling on this.
To use it for additional space, I mean, I know the court had talked about using that right side space for the public, but I even thought, depending on what the court would want to do, like, could that be used to expand the clinic downstairs? Could it be used for, I know Commissioner Leon, you had mentioned maybe a daycare, or the item that's next, which is having a space designated for our mothers to be able to express milk. So just a thought, but if it's open, then obviously that could not be used for that space. But it sounds like we've looked into it and it's just too costly.
There's, it would be very expensive to put a ceiling on.
Sam, before you get out of that picture, I understand that the original plans allowed that area to be built up as high as 4 stories.
There has been conversations about that early on. We haven't had anything like that recent, but maybe Melina can address that as far as raising 4 stories.
Melina Añelos, Public Works. The documents we found on the courthouse options on either side hasn't shown anything that was planned ahead in the construction drawings. Now, all these improvements don't prohibit that from happening in the future. So if that's still something you guys want to do down the line, it's still possible. None of the improvements are permanent to the point where it prohibits any of those improvements happening. So the option's still there.
So what you're saying is, if we were to approve something like this, and 5 years from now we decide we want to go ahead and build out, it's still a possibility without us wasting money now.
Yeah, exactly. Most of these improvements, the vast majority of the utilities infrastructure improvements are happening down the center walkway, which will remain anyway if you build up to the sides. So. And
in total capacity, if it's full, how many employees do we anticipate being? If it's a full house, how many people are we talking about?
In the gym?
In terms of capacity?
Yeah.
On January 3rd.
One.
But after January 3rd, it'll be pretty cool.
You'll be there.
So in this area right here, we anticipate capacity to be 30 to 45 people in this area. This is open area. We could fit a significant number of people in both those areas.
Okay, thank you. About 30 to 40 people in the middle.
In the gym area.
In the gym area.
And counting spotters, because that doubles it.
I think that would be included in that.
Everyone knows you don't need a spotter.
Yeah, that's just healthy lifting. If you're not if you don't give us a spotter, that's dangerous.
And this is just for clarification purposes for me. We had spoken about this early on when I was appointed, and so the risk pool fund is providing $900,000.
$787,000, and then the general fund is reserved with $531,000. And keep in mind, the funds that hit the general fund were as a result of premium savings over the course of the past 2 years, due to our numbers just really working out because of healthcare savings for the past 2 years.
And employees would have to pay to utilize this facility?
So we presented in an earlier market whether if we run it internally or we outsource the running of this unit. We are choosing to go on the internal method, and as so, we're looking at costs that would need to be done to maintain the equipment, to maintain certain items coming in. They're looking at a $10 mark right now for internal and those that are on the health plan. For those that are not on your county health plan, we're looking at a slightly higher cost at about $15, but those are not yet finalized. Before any costs are approved, that would of course be brought to you for final approval. That's kind of the tentative.
Those are what we've come up with as our initial plans for it. And that would result in, of course, depending on use, but we're estimating about $40,000 a year that could help to offset any operational costs.
Is there any other comments from the other members of the team?
I'm not going to let Natalia talk, but
okay, Natalia's already said too much. Mr. Gerson?
How come I wasn't part of this team is what I want to know.
I do have another question, actually, if the team doesn't have any. So you had mentioned 10 catastrophic events that really hit us hard, and that if we were able to bring that, or impact 7 of those 10, that we would see a significant savings in healthcare costs to the county. Of those 10, are those 7 individuals that we could have impacted had we had preventative care somehow, or if they were going to the gym, or were they just, was it cancer, where we were like, we can't prevent cancer necessarily.
Are we going to start a morning workout requirement for the gym? Last time I checked, this is still voluntary.
Absolutely, but in making that claim that we could see a savings in healthcare costs because of, if we were to reduce that catastrophic number, are they preventable?
If you remember from our earlier meeting we had to the Commissioner's Court about the entire wellness plan and the health operations, what we were showing is that the county is experiencing about a $17 million cost a year on medical insurance. A few years ago, we experienced 10 catastrophic claims in 1 month time period that led to an extra expense of $1 million over what our normal price was of about $1.5 million. So we really went aggressively on our wellness program because when we were looking at those 10, we felt that there were some things that we can do. Not all of them could have been prevented. Some were not known until the event happened, but many of them were. And there were things that we felt that could have alerted the individual along the way. So we engaged in a pretty extensive wellness program. We received funding from the Risk Pool Board, received funding from the Commissioner's Court, and started implementing those procedures. We saw the impact that was happening with that as far as our personnel was concerned and claims. Initially, claims were increasing, which is part of the, that's normal on a wellness thing because we're pushing people to go and get checked. We're actually having events that are alerting employees as far as what their blood results are doing and recommendations to go see their doctors. So part of that entire program, we started looking for additional items that we could do to attack the 5 top risk areas that the county was experiencing. Like one of them we had brought was we're very low in vegetable consumption in the county, and we developed some programs to be able to address that. The other was obesity with it, and so we started holding events like the Zumba classes, giving incentive points if people were doing exercise programs, and that's what kind of led to this, where we could say, okay, we can have an area where we can hold these events, we can do weightlifting, we can market this, and start having a larger impact on those claims. So to answer your question directly, not all 10 dealt specifically with issues that we could have prevented, but many of them were in those areas.
And 21% of medical costs in the United States are due to obesity. So anything we can do to encourage employees, and I mean, to work on their obesity issues or avoid becoming obese, it has a direct impact on medical costs.
I have a question. 2 weeks ago, you had the thing set up where if people go to the gym so many times, they get reimbursed. How many people are taking
That's our healthy lifestyle program that we're operating right now. We have 75 that are participating in the outside gymnasium.
And that number does not mean there's only 75 people within the county that are doing it. There's only 75 that are taking advantage of the reimbursement program.
No, I understand.
Right.
In order to be successful or in order to apply for the healthy lifestyle program, you have to go at least 8 times a month to be able to get the incentive. So we have more people going to the gymnasiums than are actually receiving the incentive.
That's 3% of the county employees. That's 75, just a skosh under 3. And if you can affect your health claims by 3%, we're talking $450,000. If you look at the benefits of just the wellness, trying to equate to the savings.
But they're going already. And I understand our boss's battle. Right? Issues with the gym are simple. One, we are building something and taking away from private businesses because these people are going to quit their membership somewhere else and have a membership here. 2, the same time we voted for this, we raised county employees' insurance by 5% because we didn't have enough money because we just put $700,000 in this. And you've got someone who works in the annexes, someone who works in the public works areas or the parks, and tell them drive downtown, pay to park, and pay $10 to come use the gym that your insurance money is paying for. It just doesn't make sense, and that's my issue. One, we're competing against private business. It's already doing it. We're already doing a great thing to motivate people to do it. We're always complaining about space. We're giving up space that could be used to house departments that need it. And we're raising people's insurance by 5% to create a gym that I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think is going to see a lot of action. Those are my issues. Those are my concerns, because right now we're competing. How many people are going to give up memberships in private gyms because they're going to use this gym? And
Commissioner,
my frustration.
I appreciate the comments, and we've talked extensively in the past. I do need to clarify a couple of things. The 5% increase was not due to build this facility. That's amount we had budgeted before in the risk pool account for already. So that was the budgeted previous year. We had not received approval to do this particular gym. But what we're looking at, and I was actually on the same thought process that you were early on in this. But when we started looking at what was happening long-term, that $17 million cost that was happening in the county, we knew that we had to do something with it. If we did nothing, then I could tell you that every year that the minimum is going to be 5% increases as we go along right now. So I felt like what we need to do is we need to attack the problem in a variety of ways. This is one of them. This was an unused area. This is sitting vacant for several years. There weren't any plans in place, and so we stepped forward and said, we got a use for this. We can develop a program that's going to be able to assist employees. And this is much more than a gym. We're talking about other events that are going to be held. We'll have education events happening there. We're going to have the Zumba classes, physical fitness, coaching, all those things that would be going on. The gym is just part of that with it, but there's going to be a lot more use associated.
One of the things I also wanted to say is nothing prevents our employees from utilizing this center and still maintaining a gym membership. And I say that from personal experience. I have a yoga membership, and I may utilize the gym as well. There's people who may use this gym for certain services that are not received by private memberships. Nothing prevents them from utilizing, which is why that cost point that we end up bringing back to you is going to be so critical, so that employees can maximize their wellness when at work or when outside of work. One of the biggest hindrances we hear from our employees and why they don't exercise is time. They don't have the time because the minute they leave the office, their next jobs turn on. They become parents, they become family, whatever it is that they're doing. This idea is during working hours when they're flexing or they're coming on a break, coming on lunch, coming before work starts, to make it as easy on our employees as possible so that they can maximize their wellness efforts. I don't know the impact it's going to have on the private business, but I'm hoping that it's not to the detriment that you think it will be. Like I said, there's potential in using both services. And then again, on the healthcare costs, I know Sam talked about it a little bit, but our whole point, and I can't stress this enough, the whole point behind creating a wellness center was to minimize healthcare costs. That is the driving force behind this wellness center. Yes, of course, there's fringe benefits, such as it's awesome for recruitment. We can have people know we have a gym and I can help hire, or employees here, it can boost their morale. Those are all fringe benefits associated with this, but the driving force behind us creating a wellness center is to really minimize those healthcare costs. Like Sam said, if we do nothing about that 17 million, if we do nothing, then it's only going to be a bigger beast. And so when we go back to Judge Volt's comment on the 10 catastrophic events, this wellness center is not for the people already on the gym. This is not for the 75 that we already have. This is for the others that don't have anything. We're trying to appeal to those, because if we can save 3%, if we can save 10 lives, it will recoup its benefit. Commissioner, we've had these conversations offline, and I've said all along, my goal is to prove you wrong, and Sam knows that. He's taken the challenge, and we're doing our best to do that, because it's all about cost, it's about the organization, and of course it's about having some really good employees and some fringe benefits on the side of it, but we're hoping to drive those numbers down.
I think it's about, changing the mentality too. It's not gonna, you're probably not gonna see the savings overnight, but it's more of a long-term goal that we're setting here, and all of the other activities that you all have been doing that have to do with wellness. I mean, hiring a wellness director and all the programs, the farm to
Farm to work
market program, the health fairs that you're doing, all of those things are helping to create a mentality within our organization, to help people take care of themselves, and in the long run, that is going to save the county, way more than $500,000 that we're investing in this gym. I think it's well worth it.
And I think for me, for example, I have a membership with EP Fitness, for example. And so I couldn't come to the gym on the weekends, at least this gym, once it's built out. So I would probably keep my membership with them, receive the reimbursement, which is almost paying for the membership except for like $5, I think. So technically, if I get reimbursed, I'm paying for a $5 membership to EP Fitness, that I could then use that reimbursement to pay for this. And so I have access to both the county facility and a private facility, at a really minimal cost, $15 technically, and that's cheaper than most memberships at any gym. So it really can, I think, be helpful for employees to continue to use the private sector, but also utilize the tools that we're offering for them.
Question, Sam? For those that currently aren't one of the 75 people, if employees are able to join this facility, and will they be scanning in so you can record how often they're doing it? And if it is 10 or 15, if that's the one membership term, without me have the same eligibility for reimbursement?
The idea is on the healthy lifestyle is a separate thing. We're saying if you go to the gym 8 times, it's a qualified gym. It's not like your brother-in-law's garage gymnasium.
Have you seen the garage?
Then you would qualify for that. This would still work in this particular case. The idea that we're having is you'd actually have a card, so when you become a member of the gym, you'd get a card, you swipe in at the front door, and so you could go in. There's not going to have to be anybody there monitoring that. We would also have a tracking system and a reporting system, so we can identify the usage, the impact that's having, and then see if we can tie that into what's happening with our claims.
Thanks.
And what about the expenses for operating this? Is that going to be paid out of the health fund, or HR's budget, or general fund?
What we had discussed initially is 2 different options that we were bringing out, was whether we had a private entity coming in, and we showed some expenses, and I forgot the actual amounts, but they were well over $100,000 that it would take for us to be able to operate that gym. We shifted from that to try to identify a means that we would be able to do this internally instead of externally, so we don't hire contracted services. So this is, if we maintain this to where it's employees only, controlled access with that employees can use that facility, we would have coaches, trainers, and things like that would come in periodically to be able to provide the services that are also provided at the gymnasiums. We enjoy 3 contracts right now with gymnasiums that part of their contract is they have to provide educational opportunities for our employees. Those things would still take place. So there will be some operational costs because we have maintenance, we have electricity, we have equipment replacements. We have a wellness account that we're operating under right now for that particular purpose, and that's so far it looks like we're using that plus the roughly $40,000 that we're talking as far as the fees are concerned. So to answer your question, yes, there'll be some operational costs, but so far we've been able to account for them in the existing budget. We are not requesting any additional funding for operations. We've already got a wellness coordinator that would be positioned. We don't have to
And there
hire
would be
for this
revenue
one.
from the fees.
What about the liability issues if somebody's injured?
We talked about that as well. We looked at some workers' comp issues to see how that would actually play with it. There's some forms that we're developing as far as releases are concerned, but the bottom line is we would have to address each one of those cases on a case-by-case basis as far as workers' comp is concerned. Now, we've already got programs in place that deal with that, like we're doing these physical fitness events with that, and we've had some minor cases that have come up, and that was one of our trigger points where we were watching to see if the cost of, for instance, the cost on workers' comp exceeded what we were gaining on the program. We'd be eliminating those programs. But that is something that we are watching. We've been in communication with our workers' comp personnel and trying to make sure it does not have an impact.
So has the liability issues been vetted with the county attorney's office?
We're working with our attorneys, yes.
We actually had 2 attorneys on this situation in 2 different areas looking at the funding and also the contracts that develop on that. And then we handle insurance from our area with it. We've also provided that information to our brokers to identify any additional areas that we may experience some liability. So we are vetting this. We're not done. We still have a lot of work to do. Right now we're at the design phase, but we're going to continue working on those potential issues as they develop.
So you're not planning on having an employee stationed there?
We are planning on having an employee station there, but it's our wellness coordinator who is also going to be doing different functions, meetings, training sessions that happened at other locations as well. So for instance, we may go down to the sheriff's department and have a wellness trainer. We'll have a wellness health fair at that location, or a juvenile probation department, which will pull that person away, and so the facility wouldn't have anybody there. That's part of the reason we had talked about having security cameras attached to that, and then access. So there'd be like telephones. Somebody would go in, be able to call on the telephone and go to our front desk over to HR to answer the questions or to distribute to the person that has the information.
Commissioner Leon, you got a question?
Just real quick, in outside gyms, I recently had a conversation with the director of the YWCA, and she was not aware of any county employees taking advantage of some of the gyms. She may not have the access to it. Do you know if that's one of the gyms, maybe the YW and the YMCA?
I'm a member of the YM through the county.
The county.
So they're on the program?
The YMCA is on our plan. We are contracted with them. Matter of fact, their contracts are due, I think, in the next couple of months.
And the YW is not?
The YW is not one of the contracted vendors.
Now, she mentioned that she's also interested in them being part of this program, so maybe it'd be a good idea to contact them.
We anticipate going back out for the gymnasiums with the additional services that they provide. So it's not, by building this, is not going to eliminate the ability for employees to take their families at other locations. But the county gets some benefits off of that as well.
So they would be able to submit a proposal when we go out. Did they? I don't think they did submit last time.
They did not.
Okay, and the mere fact that they are county employees or city employees, whatever the case may be, they may be eligible for a discount on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they even though they're not a contracted gym with us that we're doing payroll deduction through, our employees can go to the YWCA and get the healthy lifestyle benefit, just like the other gyms.
But we'll definitely keep them in mind when we go out the next round.
Have you all taken a profile of the individuals who are taking advantage of gym memberships? Are they from all income levels, of the county? Are they, Commissioner Haggerty brought up, let's say road and bridge workers or people who work in the annexes, or are you seeing a diverse range of employees take advantage of this?
We do have a wide range that it's taken advantage of the gym programs. I'm talking about the payroll deduction. We have employees. We also have employees and their families that are participating. We have them from every, well, I won't say every department, but several departments throughout the county that are utilizing right now. I don't think our numbers are as high as I'd like them to be. We still keep encouraging that. And early on, we did send out a survey to all county employees as far as this gym usage. If they would be doing that, I believe our response was a little over 600 employees that would be participating. Again, that's in the response to the survey. When it actually comes down to it, I can't tell you for sure on how many we did.
But Commissioner, I think if you're wanting to delve into what percentage fall into the age range of 18 to 25, 25 to 35, income levels below 25,000, between, I don't think we can quote that right this second, but it's data that we can easily obtain and we can share with the court at a later date.
Appreciate it.
We can send that to you. Sure.
Any other questions?
Judge, we are not looking for any action item today. We just wanted to inform the court on where we were at, and we anticipate bringing several items as we go through this process back to the court.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for your support.
Item 5, receive a presentation regarding the County of El Paso's mother-friendly worksite plan.
Oh, no, there.
With the next two items.
That's a great one.
The order of our presentation. Judge, Commissioners, good morning again. Melissa Carrillo with Human Resources. This morning, I am pleased to introduce a colleague of ours in HR, Ludi Velo. Ludi currently serves as the HR manager for the Sheriff's Office. But as you know, we work on several issues within HR and we assign projects to anywhere possible. Ludi has been instrumental and phenomenal in the research, the committee meetings, and the development of this plan. And so today we're going to co-present on this for you. As a reminder, this is also one of your county strategic goals. It falls under the professional and the effective organization. When you look at mother-friendly work sites and you think, that's all cute and that's awesome, but how does it make good business sense? Today's presentation will highlight why it relates to your business. And so with that, I'd like Ludi to go ahead and start, and I will chime in as needed.
Good morning, County Judge, Commissioners. I will be giving you a brief overview as to why it's important to be a mother-friendly certified worksite and what our plan looks like in order to achieve that goal. Besides it being a federal and state law that directs employers to allow the time and provide a lactating space, it's also encouraging for an organization to be certified, much more efficient and attractive place to work at. We can utilize this as a tool for recruitment, and it'll also help us with retention.
And before we continue, just so you all know, I'm sure you all are aware that it is state law, but we have several employees and supervisors watching that may not know. It is actually a requirement under the Fair Labor Standards Act that requires nursing mothers to be able to express milk during certain break times as reasonable at work.
As you can see, only 10% of working women are able to meet their goal to breastfeed for 6 months once they return to work. There are many barriers, from not having enough support from management or coworkers, from moms don't feel comfortable to ask for the accommodations, and supervisors at times are still denying that right, as Melissa had mentioned.
And when you look at 10% of full-time working women being able to do so for 6 months, the standard is to try and hit a 90% metric. That's the goal of what your health institutions are looking for. So 10% are the only ones that are saying, I can hit the 6-month goal. We're nationwide looking for a 90% metric.
Do you know what the county is currently?
No, we do not. But as part of our plan today, the survey is going out after this. So we will find out.
If we had moms meet their goal of the 6 months to breastfeed, it would reduce the risk of many serious medical conditions for the infant, up to infant death syndrome, son-infant death syndrome. And as you can see, there's a lot more other medical conditions: obesity, ear infections, respiratory infections, asthma, type 1, type 2 diabetes. So there's a lot of other illnesses.
Healthcare benefits, right?
And for moms who are breastfeeding, it would also reduce the risk of postpartum depression, ovarian and breast cancer, along with many other medical conditions. Overall, it's a good business. To be a certified agency, it increases retention and loyalty. It will improve employee access to lactating room or space, decrease in healthcare costs, increase the wellness of the child and mother. And also the judiciary was worried about the workforce, but they also would like to have the option of having a lactating space for the citizens who conduct business with the county. And we'll be looking into that to see if that's an option.
And so where that stems from is members of the judiciary at random times will reach out during court times when they're subpoenaed, when they're sequestered, when they have to be here, but they're nursing mothers. They often run into issues: where do we put them? What do we do? How can this program help? And so coincidentally, we were already working on this plan, and we said we'd absolutely like you to be a member of our committee. Their schedule prohibits them from coming at various times, but we have several members who've reached out that have asked to be part of this committee and be able to ensure that the judiciary needs are met as well. They're looking at the concern of the public. We're looking at the needs of the workforce. Today's plan is presenting something to you that does not cost. We're not looking for costs. We're not looking for impacts. We're looking at a plan that's going to continue to support this organization so that your managers and your leaders that work here will continue to support and foster this. It's as simple a fix as: you don't have a private office, I'll leave my office for 15 minutes so that you can use mine. You don't have access to a fridge, we'll see if you can use this. You don't have access to running water, we'll see if you can use this. All of that already exists within our courthouse. It's a matter of being creative in how to use it. Now, what Ludi tied into is having their own lactating spaces. We're not asking that the court at this point designate a room for nursing mothers. But as some of you may have seen nationwide, if you start going to some of the bigger airports, they literally have lactating rooms that are quiet spaces for mothers to be able to express milk. Some of the private organizations, Google, definitely has these types of rooms. We're not asking for that of the county organization. There are instruments that are now being sold and marketed, believe it or not. They're private portable rooms that range between $12,000 and $18,000. We're not asking for you to do that now. We're hoping that we can figure out use of space today. The judiciary is very interested in those rooms, and I've expressed to Judge Salas Mendoza, we're working here, we'll include you, we'll see what we can do to help those members of the public as well. But I want to say that now in the event you hear it again in the future, you know where it stems from.
So we have established a committee, a mother-friendly committee, and we have already met, and we are very excited to put this project together and make sure it's a success. We have also met with a nurse from the health department, and we have asked many questions and concerns that we've had as to how we can meet those challenges. According to her, she's reviewed our plan and it looks very well and promising, and she's willing to provide feedback as we go along through the process. We want to send out the survey at the end of January, and this is a huge piece to our plan. It'll identify space, the needs, how informed are our employees and management, and the survey will be broken down into two sections, which is the employee section and the management section. The management section is where it'll come in to identify the space and their obstacles. What is it that they're lacking? And we have several ideas on how to inform our employees and management. We would like to announce it during our employee orientation, provide a flyer, provide an informational packet when our employees come in for FMLA to help them understand the benefits of breastfeeding and how we can help meet their goals for breastfeeding. The nurse from the health department as well has provided additional flyers of information that we can include in that packet. Another thing that we have discovered as well is our health plan will cover a breast pump as a medically necessary item, which is huge. That's one thing that I did not know. And if you're in a consumer-driven plan and you haven't met your deductible, you can use your health savings account to purchase one. In February, we would like to submit our application. It's a very lengthy application through online. Our March, we would like to train, and then May, implement.
And so these timelines, just to bring to mind to the court's attention, in October of 2016, you all have already approved the policy. So you're already endorsing, encouraging, and supporting the law. This plan is just taking it a step further and allowing us to work with your members of management to ensure that we help them help our employees. When that plan rolls out, it gives us the potential to be a certified organization. And I won't steal Ludy's thunder, but when we always compare ourselves to the top 10 most populous counties, there's only 2 that are currently certified. So we really do see this as a way of not only just doing what's required by law, but really pioneering our way in saying that the County of El Paso is an organization that differs from many others.
From reaching out to our counties, we have also received feedback that the ones that are not certified, of course, they have their policy and they're looking into getting certified. And they were asking us to give feedback once we do get certified to help them or guide them in the right direction. As you can see, there's 2,884 certified work sites in Texas, and there's 53 in the county of El Paso.
Can you give some examples of those 53?
I'm sorry?
Can you give some examples of those 53?
Most of them are hospitals, clinics, like the WIC program, the health department. Also, the city has established like a lactating space, and that can be used by any citizen that needs it. And they also have a nurse to help them with that process.
And the city of El Paso is not, correct me if I'm wrong, a certified organization. There's several departments of the city that are certified, but I understand they're in the process of making it citywide as well. Okay. And so, of course, those 2 I mentioned, it's Tarrant and Montgomery County. Okay, and I think that's it.
So at the end of the day, it's about caring for our employees and the organization that we work for. And doing this will show how we have accomplished one more objective to demonstrate that. Do you have anything?
No, I think that's it.
Or any questions for us?
When we do get certified, we get this cute logo that the health department's able to say they are certified, they are compliant, and we put it on our recruitment page. That really helps working women who are trying to find organizations that are diverse and that will support them in their childbearing years. And just so you all know, the age of a childbearing woman,
it's 15 to 44.
15 to 44, and if you'd like to know what percentage of your workforce is in the childbearing age at this moment,
we have 24%. We have 723 females within that age in our
24%. A quarter of your workforce is pleased to know, I'm sure, that this would exist for them. So, do you all have any questions?
I think this is really exciting, and I think it falls in line with what other entities are starting to do and to look at in ensuring that we offer our mothers who are just so resilient the opportunity to be able to continue to do the great job they do professionally, but also as mothers, and not make them feel like they're lacking in any one department. And oftentimes that's the home and their children. And so being able to offer this kind of benefit, and hopefully others down the line, will make El Paso County a more attractive space for our current employees, but also to attract future prospects. So thank you for looking into this.
Thank you. So again, today's item is not for action. It's to let you know where we're at. It's a strategic goal. Any plans that get adopted as a result will stay internal, as they will be procedural for us, but we will absolutely share results of the survey with you so that, Commissioner, we can let you know what that looks like, and any guidance or feedback you have as we continue to develop this plan.
No, I'm really glad you're doing this for the workforce. I was going to say that as it pertains also to the customers, I mean, to those that utilize the courthouse, I think, Texas courthouses are unique in the sense of the customers that we serve. A lot of people who probably utilize the courthouse probably don't necessarily want to be here. Otherwise, if they had a choice of staying home, but maybe a lot of folks are chosen for jury duty that they can't get out of. And so I think, providing some sort of, space is really critical, because, it's not like a city government where maybe somebody can choose to stay home, or a lot of the folks who come here, either have to be here, or maybe they could be family members to, somebody that's going through a court case. So I think it's really important that if you can just keep us updated on that side of things as well. On the workforce, it's really good. Mothers shouldn't be penalized or we should make it more difficult for them to return to work, and that's something really critical as well, is that we make it as easy as possible for working moms to continue to make that transition after childbirth.
Thank you.
And so submitting the plan to be a certified entity will not necessarily require, and I'm not saying that the court is not willing to make any investments, but just thinking down the road long term, initially it wouldn't require an investment as long as we're able to identify a way to create these safe spaces for our mothers.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we'll be working with facilities, so if there's some challenges, like a door doesn't have a lock for safety or anything like that, they'll be able to fix it for us, or an outlet that's not working, things like that, just minor changes so that we can achieve that goal.
And have we at all teamed up with our health clinic downstairs to ensure that they are in the loop? I'm not sure what role they would play, but in terms of the health aspect and why this is so important, I would like for them to continue to remain in the loop. And if there needs to be a public space, I don't think they have any capacity right now, but in the future, it'd be great to have them looped in somehow. And if there are any added benefits that they can offer to this kind of program, that would be fantastic. And our children's hospital too. I think if there's any way that they can be looped in, it would be great.
I go back to Commissioner Perez says, makes sense of, I understand the not need right now for employees to have a space, but definitely there's a lot of people here who don't want to be here, and having the ability to have a space would probably be very beneficial. I know since I have 3 children, the dad's role is fairly easy in the beginning parts of having a child, but my wife went back to work. I know I was hearing stories of her having to hide in her closet while kids were in the room. So I understand the risk of it, but I think for our employees, I think it's an easier fix, but I agree we need to make sure there's a space for the parents who come for jury duty, for any of those other issues.
I don't know if Melissa mentioned it. When you talked about the pods, that they're mobile, they can be moved easily.
It's like a tent. It's kind of weird. I'm not understanding.
It actually reminds me of have you seen those really small campers? I mean, even the shape of it's kind of like an egg shape.
I've seen those chairs in hotels.
But it's really mobile and they're attractive looking. But I thought, that's.
And when you think of that cost, the basic models are 12, but the nice models we've looked into are about 18,000. They have their own sinks, they have their own potable water, they have their own, and it's a private space and it's portable. That would be very helpful in a space such as the courthouse, where the members of the public tend to appeal to. So we're looking at it, we're not rolling it out, which is why I want to be transparent and say that to you now. This plan, when we started, we wanted to ensure we could do it without any budgetary impact to the county, because it's the law and we need our supervisors to really get compliant with that immediately. But looking long-term, and we're starting to work with the judiciary, that public component is going to be something we may come back to at a later date, in budget possibly.
It always gives me pride. I know this sounds corny, but we had an employee in our office who came from HR, came over to our office, but you'd walk by an office in our area sometimes and you'd see the sign on the door, privacy pumping in progress. And I think she was successfully able to breastfeed for more than 2 years.
Yes. Yeah, she said she was going to burn that pump after she was done. She's going to drag it everywhere.
But she hit 2 years, right? We're achieving, we're trying to hit 6 months, and 2 years is great.
Those portable units sound like, we should not dismiss them, because I'm thinking maybe there's a court hearing on the 8th floor and the judge, the staff knows for a fact that there's somebody that needs it. Then we just ship one of them up to that floor.
Right.
So it makes sense.
It does.
Getting the survey results back and getting that certification, in that process, if the court needs to begin to plan for this next budget cycle to invest in our community and the workforce in this kind of way, I know I would be really excited to
Yes, sir. I have a follow-up. We'll definitely bring you the survey results. I want you to know what your workforce is saying, and we'll definitely keep you abreast of those costs as we get into the budget season in the next few months. Thank you again for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more and you'll be rid of me.
Item number 6, received a presentation regarding the County of El Paso's recruitment plan.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Melissa Carrillo again for the record with HR. And this morning I have another member of my team, and as you can tell, they hate me for it sometimes, but I really push them because I want them to grow and develop and be prepared to successfully promote. Val, like Ludi, is one of our other rock stars in our office. Some of you have had the pleasure of working with her. If not, this is Valeria Fernandez. She's been with the county since her internship days at UTEP, and she's grown and moved up through the ranks. She currently is our supervisor of our employment services team, which handles training, employee relations, and now our recruitment unit. We've never had one up until the court was able to support and provide some positions to us this past budget year. We now have a really exciting recruitment division, which she's going to share more about. We're very busy. We're actively recruiting all the time. And so this morning, Val would like to bring you a recruitment plan that we're working on. Again, not for your adoption or consideration in the future, but to let you know how are we recruiting your talent. We talk about it in generic terms so often, but I want you to know what the steps are that we're actually doing to walk the walk, to bring that talent in. The plan itself, like I said, is more operational, it's more internal, but it is, again, one of your strategic goals. This is to help ensure one of your 3 goals, professional and effective organizations, is met and reached. And so with that, I'll introduce Val, and she'll talk a little bit more about the details.
Okay, good morning, Judge, Commissioners, Valeria. I'm here to present our recruitment plan. The items listed behind me that I'll be covering today are also the major sections of our plan itself. And so I'll start with our statement of objective. So the county, as with any other organization, recruiting is one of the most important things you can do because your organization is made up of good people and you want to have the most talented, creative people in your organization. And so our plan, we do want to outline a fair and consistent process to bring on board any new employees. Our recruitment division, again, as Melissa said, it consists of myself as a supervisor, our HR generalist senior, Christina, who's sitting behind me, and one of the new positions that you did approve, our HR generalist intermediate, who will be coming on board at the end of February. And so we'll be responsible for carrying out this plan. This plan, we will review it and revise as necessary. So we'll review it each year and then make any changes or update it to stay current with trends. So our plan of action. A lot of the plan is stuff that we are already doing here. Items or steps that we already take. There are a few new steps which I'll go over. So anytime there is a vacancy, it starts with a vacancy requisition from the department. Something new that we have added is a pre-recruitment meeting. And so what a pre-recruitment meeting is to enable our team to get more information as to this vacancy. And these are meetings that we'll hold with the hiring authorities for any department head positions, as well as any specialized positions. And the way we define that is based on the need, the level of position, or the difficulty to fill. So if there's a position for which there's a very limited pool of candidates, this is something that we can work with a department and say, okay, how are we going to bring in qualified candidates for this position?
So before Val moves on, if you think of a few years ago even, we post jobs on apcounty.com and that was the extent of our recruitment. As you know, that does not work in today's workforce. We need to go find them. We need to, especially in the 4.2 unemployment market, we have to go headhunt them. We didn't have the resources before to do that. We now have a team that's going to do that. But when she talks about specialized positions, we're talking about like re-entry program managers, your heritage tourism coordinator. Those aren't normal positions that there's tons of people out there to fill. So this pre-recruitment meeting will help us work with the department to identify some other things, and I won't take your thunder, but to identify ways of going out and finding people that we think would be phenomenal re-entry program managers or very good heritage tourism coordinators.
And so part of our plan of action as well as talent research. So especially with our department head positions, we look out to the Southwest region and we see who are in similar positions in similar entities, who are the department heads in other counties. How can we recruit them to come to El Paso? As Melissa said, with the unemployment rate being so low, a lot of people are happy in their jobs. They're not looking to move, and we need to go out and find them and tell them what we have to offer here. We also look at professional organizations and then any appropriate recruiting sources that we may find.
And before we move on from that, as you all know, we've had quite a bit of huge recruitments in the past few years at director levels as well. Deborah, our purchasing agent, this talent research component of how we now recruit is really how we found Deborah. Deborah wasn't looking for a job. We sent her information. She kind of just pushed it away. But we were intense, and we printed out documents. We have an amazing recruitment flyer that highlights El Paso and why it's so amazing. And we addressed it personally to her, and it came to her desk. She was forced to open something and read it, and it caught her eye. And she tells that story, and if she was here today, I'm sure she'd be proud to share it as well. But that is how you recruit talent, is you've got to go to them and you've got to find them. So that's a huge part of our new process.
Behind me is a pre-recruitment meeting, and again, it's just to set the timeline of what are we looking to hire, who's going to sit on the panels, are there going to be any testing assessments that will take place, who else should we involve, who should we seek input on these questions, who do we include in the interviews, and then what is our plan to finally bring someone on board. On our recruitment section, job interest card, if you're not familiar with it, on our website you are able to sign up and say, I want to receive an email notification when positions within this certain category are posted. And so that is something that is offered through NeoGov, which is our applicant tracking system. We do have the job postings out there, and all of them are listed on a website hosted by NeoGov, which is governmentjobs.com. With recruitment advertising, we do send out an administrative blast email weekly with which positions are, or what departments are hiring for positions, or who do we have vacancies with. We also post with external professional organizations. For example, the purchasing department just reopened their buyer position, and we are posting with the local purchasing organization here in town. With 4 key areas that we are specifically focusing on, we'll attend job fairs 4 times a year, and we'll be focusing on 4 specific areas. So one of them will be college university, one of them is veterans, the other is diversity and inclusion, and then one will be a technical trade. So we're being very specific and strategic in who are we focusing on and where are we putting our attention. A few new things that we are adding is turnover reports. And so we want to track the turnover rate for departments and see if there are any trends, anything that we can, if we start to see a trend, that we will reach out to departments and say, hey, how can we help you with your recruitment? Or do you have any employee relations issues that we can assist you with? And since employee relations also falls under my division, we can move those resources over and assist departments as necessary. We're also looking to become involved in social media. I've done some research. There's other counties, specifically in California, that they do post their vacancies. They have an Instagram. There's only one other county in Texas that I found that their HR does have a Twitter account. So these are other ways that you can reach candidates that may not actively be seeking positions. We also will be working with IT to create a recruitment video that highlights the city as a whole, as well as people within our organization. So perhaps we might get some feedback from you all or include you in the video as to how can we bring people to the county and what do we have to offer. With our selection process, not much has changed, just that we're formalizing these steps. An employee applies, there's a screening process, we refer the applications to the departments. We then proceed with testing and assessments as necessary or as decided upon between ourselves and the department. The interviews, and then backgrounds. With all backgrounds, we do conduct backgrounds on all new hires, promotions, and transfers. And so that is part of our process.
And so one thing I do want to say on backgrounds is, as you know, elected officials do not have to comply with the county's hiring procedures. But for the past many years, we have been working with the elected so that they can comply even if they don't, because the goal is to help them hire the most qualified candidate rather than someone they know, someone they've met. And we are pleased to say that those relationships continue to build, and they, for the most part, utilize our process. When it comes to backgrounds, if we have an elected official hire someone that didn't go through the posting, that did not go through the process that we would have recommended, we still run backgrounds on them. Because we want to ensure that we're not exposing the county to any liability at any point. So we run them, and if something is to come up, we reach out to the elected and say, did you know? So we're hoping that we get it before, and it doesn't have to result in that, but just so you all know, we're running backgrounds on every single employee that's hired into this organization. Well, you're elected, so you've got the job.
With our hiring process, again, not much has changed from what our current practice is. The department makes a job offer, we send out a new hire letter, and we make arrangements for the initial start date and the new employee orientation. Our orientations take place the first Monday or the first business day of each pay period. And then with internal transfers, we do coordinate with the departments. We are revisiting our procedures on notifying employees as to any changes in benefits or status when they move from part-time to full-time or vice versa. In conclusion, as Melissa said, elected officials, they do have the ability to hire and not necessarily have to post a position as department heads do. Our policy says that you need to post a vacancy for 5 business days. Elected officials can say, I know who I want to bring on, and they can follow that process. But again, we do follow the backgrounds, we do conduct backgrounds on all new hires. With department head authorities, they do need to follow the process as I stated. If it comes to the point where they do make a hire or they do make a selection that we would not recommend, Melissa would then let our chief administrator know, just as a courtesy. Part of our plan, and as we were putting this together, we reviewed our policies that may be impacted or that pertain to our recruitment policies. And so we've divided it into 3 areas. The first is we've reviewed these policies, no revisions are required. These are policies that we do think that something will need to be revised, just so that way we have our plan and the policies do support the plan. And then we have 2 policies that we believe should be rescinded because their information is now in other locations. It's part of our practice or it's in other policies. And in conclusion, we appreciate your support as we roll this out. We welcome any feedback that you may have or any questions. And again, recruitment is one of the biggest, most important things that an organization can do, and so we do appreciate your support.
Thanks for the presentation, Commissioner Leonhardt.
Yeah, and it's good to see you again. I think one of the first times I met Val was here, maybe about 5 years ago, and I had a question for you. You had like a little thing on your yeah, and I said, "What is that? A technology or something?" And that's just to make your laptop work.
Yeah, I had a strike down the middle unless the clip was on there.
Yeah, so I said, well, it must be something. I gotta give me one of those clips.
Our computers don't need binder clips. Chris had it great.
But I've got to say, I am so happy that we have a recruitment division now, because you can have all the training in the world, and if we've recruited the wrong person, we're going to have problems in the delivery of service, whether it's a generalist or a professional. One of my mantras is, you just can't teach nice. And it's so important on that initial hire that we get the right person. Because if we don't, we're going to have problems.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So congratulations, I'm impressed.
Thank you.
You had talked about, and it went by very quickly, when you hire someone, you talked about the first Monday, the first or second or third
orientation.
Yeah. So do they receive the orientation prior to officially starting at the county, or they start and then a week later they get the orientation?
Ideally, and what we are moving towards is that an employee starts on that first Monday, and so on their very first day, they're introduced into the county government. They receive all of the required trainings that they need. We collect their paperwork and we in-process them. So after they leave us, they're then welcome to go back to the department, and then they don't need to see us again until they come in for questions or for other trainings. So we really want to catch new hires at the very beginning on their first day of employment.
And as a result, our orientation back in the day used to be 8 hours, and then it dwindles, and then it fluctuates. But we are finding that this is a very prime opportunity to share with our employees information that they may otherwise not receive from the departments. And so we've been working with the electeds and the department heads on possibly expanding it to a 6-hour day again. Just capitalize on that first day. It's very important.
Yeah, there's a lot to go for you.
Yes, yes.
Commissioners, any other questions?
You mentioned the diversity inclusion. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure.
I mean, because that's an important component for governments to take into consideration. You know, I often talk about when I worked on Capitol Hill, there were very few minorities on Capitol Hill, which just made it a very difficult place to develop a career. You know, we have to be cognizant. I mean, here we have a commissioner's court of 5 men, you know, but we have to be cognizant not only of racial and ethnic diversity, but gender diversity as well. So could you expand on that a little bit?
Yes. So with the diversity inclusion, there is an organization here in town called BUILD, and they do hold a hiring fair or a job fair each year, and that's one I think we will be focusing on this year for our diversity inclusion job fair. And they are focused on including citizens that have disabilities. And so we will be participating in their job fair this summer, I believe.
And so when we build our plan, we try to plan next year, this year, so that we already know who we're participating in. And so that's the one we're doing in April with Build. But we're constantly watching for veteran inclusion. We're constantly watching. Veterans do veterans in general, but there's also one that they do where it's women vets. And so we're constantly watching to diversify our workforce. Another division, Elsie, who's not here, is also watching for those diversity numbers to see how departments pan out as recruitment hits. Is there a common trend? Are we always hiring a certain generation or a certain by accident? You know, when you talk about diversity, there's 2 different ways, and we try to help our departments open their minds and see different candidates.
One of the things that you all do is also like when on interview panels, we try to make sure that our panels are diverse.
They have to be.
So, I mean, we make sure it's not, 3 white males sitting there doing the hiring, assessing the candidates. We try to look at age, gender, national origin, ethnicity, etc. And then I know, like on the department head hirings, we've done things like, I always say, we always take the approach of, if I were a public works director looking for a job, where would I go look? And we look at, I think this, as a matter of fact, that's a position where, or one of the positions we had recently where it's like, there was an organization that was Black public works administrators, women public works administrators. It's like, get it to them. They do a really good job. The list of ads of where they work to send those, and we try to think, like, how can we tap the League of Women in Government, just trying to tap different diverse places where people will go and see our advertisement, because that is a message to people. If you're willing to advertise to their target market, that's definitely a message that's the type of organization, the diversity and inclusion that the County of El Paso prides itself on.
We'll continue to keep that as one of our pillars.
And just real quickly, speaking from a participant, I had the pleasure of being on a couple of recruitment panels in the very recent past few months of some of your executive positions. And having been here as long as I have, it's night and day. It's very procedural. The diversity, but the incredible thing on the back end when you're sitting there and doing a debriefing before a final candidate is going through the background and selection, you've gotten the pool down to a group of individuals that are highly skilled, well trained, who, when you ask them why El Paso, are people who really want to be here, from either in El Paso, they want to stay here, or coming from East Coast, West Coast. And so the training they do at their level for the panel pre-interview and even on the group that's doing the soft lunchtime interviews, it's night and day. And the process, I think, has been yielding us some great leadership, and I think is only going to strengthen your leadership in the future.
Thank you.
Any questions, Commissioners? Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you again for your continued support.
Have a good afternoon.
You're done.
One more?
No, I'm done.
Now you get to listen to me for the next.
You all have a great day.
Now listen, if you mind going by my office real quick.
Sure, of course. Oh, yes, sir.
Item 7, receive a presentation on the upcoming investment advisory services bid.
And before you walk out, Melissa, I failed to mention this while your team was here, and I'm hoping they're still listening, but every time I go to review the agenda items for human resources, they're wonderfully informational. I mean, it's all laid out. It directs us exactly to what goal on the strategic plan it's addressing. You can get everything you need just by reading that, and so just kudos to you and your team for putting so much work into making sure that we feel as prepared as possible too.
I've been trained very well. What we've been trained on and how I train down is we're supposed to tell a story. And so we do our best to tell our story and agenda items so that members of the public can understand even if the subject matter has no bearing to them. So we kick back Novus agenda items until the story is told perfectly. But I appreciate that. I'll make sure to let them know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Sorry for that.
Feel compelled to start once upon a time.
The item has been read into the record, so Mr. Hargrove.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Wally Hargrove from the Office of Budget and Fiscal Policy. So during our budget discussions for the adoption of FY18 budget, the court expressed an interest in engaging in investment advisory services with the goal of improving our bottom line, doing an internal inside look, reviewing our policy, but also engaging in third-party expertise, disinterested, that looks at our book of business, works with our staff in the auditor's office, with developing strong reviews of statements of cash flows and making review of our investment policy. And I'm going to give you an overview as to where we're at right now and the timeline we expect. So in accordance with your strategic plan this year, this one is in alignment with your fiscally sound county government, financially sound county government, which was part of your goals. It is part of the action for the investment policy refinement. Ultimate goal is to increase revenue, the degree of aggressiveness with our investments, and it's the fiscally responsible thing to do for our constituents. It's directly linked to our county strategic plan, goal 1, financially sound. Required actions were to update the current investment policy to allow for the contracting of an investment advisory service. So we actually reached out to the county auditor's office, who is your currently delegated investment officer in accordance with statute. When you abolished the position of the county treasurer back in 1989, those duties were assigned to the county auditor's office and have been there since. So in looking at the development of this RFP and the current investment policy, we've worked with that staff to include those required provisions by statute over the oversight of the financial controls, the prescribing of the procedures. There are still some clear separations of duties that and taking each of those into account. And the auditor staff has been very gracious in doing the reviews of what we developed as the draft RFP. They've gone through, inserted their language, we've kept legal into the loop all the way through. And we're in the final stages, and we expect to present to you a new investment policy that needs to be updated first before we can effectuate an RFP. But we're super close to that. The second required action was to develop a comprehensive bid document. That is done, and we believe it meets the needs of the county. And this morning, as I was reviewing and prepping for Commissioner's Court, I realized I hadn't sent you the policy. So I did send you I don't have it on the agenda today, but as part of our due diligence, and want to get that into your hands for your consideration and overview, because we'll be presenting that very, very shortly to commissioners and going out to bid on that. Of course, we'll publish the RFP and award the bid, contract the award, begin service, and then lastly, evaluate the results. First action, update the current investment policy that's underway right now. The auditor staff have drafted their updates to the policy. We will be required to include those updates in the FY18 investment policy, so you'll have a revision coming on your agenda, we expect in February, so we can revise that. That allows us to go out and engage and contract for those services. Our goal is to revise that policy in February, and then give the court an update by February 22nd and take action by February 26th. That February 22nd date is your regular Thursday agenda. We won't take action, but we'll take action in the subsequent Monday. That's the latest we want to take action. Number 2 is develop a comprehensive bid document that currently exists. Those specs have been completed. I was real appreciative that as we were looking at this, we're looking for best practices. So one of the documents that we looked at that the auditors recommended was a source that we use day in and day out, and that's the Government Finance Officers Association. They're internationally recognized. They look for best practices. They produce a best practices document when you're going out for these types of services, and we've incorporated each of those best practices into this RFP document. Goal: publish and release the RFP in February, and and award the bid and contract in March. It doesn't need to be a long, drawn-out 3 or 4 month process. Begin services April 3rd, and then report and assess the results to you on no less than a quarterly basis. It's short, it's sweet. That's where we're at. We're on track, and I want to say again a big thanks to the auditor's office for helping engage in this.
Questions of the Judge, Commissioners, we would have already had investments out there, but our biggest handicap right now is that we don't have a safekeeping account. Our current depository bank is a regional bank, does not have that capability. We're in the process of going out and doing the contracts. That requires a lot of documentation because we have to have collateralization for any funds that are left in the bank under the Collateralization Act, 2257 of the Government Code. It has, all amounts have to be collateralized unless they are in an investment. So we're looking at that. We're looking at how we can get around that legally to keep the county's funds so we don't put any money at risk. And under the Public Funds Investment Act, our duties are safety of principal, liquidity, and yield. Yield is number 3 on that list. We have always looked for safety and liquidity. We need to meet our cash needs, our cash flow needs. And like I said, I would have been out there, but when we went to IMB, we lost that capability. And that has been a big handicap because we were chasing yield.
So Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll ask Eddie Sosa to speak on it as well. My understanding is SIGME is working on the development of that safekeeping agreement, and I know it's been long coming, but
SIGME and Diana.
It's stage-wise, where do we know where we're at on that?
Stage-wise, we're trying to finalize it, but that will still be one of the issues where we would be doing this.
So again, to bring this thing to closure, we need to get our safekeeping agreement. You made a comment, there's not a working around on the process, is make sure that the safekeeping agreement assures that we're complying with the statutory investment requirements under that chapter 2256 and 7. So,
and regardless, we would still have to be doing the record keeping of all the investments.
Yeah, and the proposed
approval and release of it.
The approval, the RFP consideration, and the procedural component of this. Neither of those contemplate removing any statutorily required authority of recommending the processes and procedures and doing the receiving, dispersing, and the record keeping of that. So all of those duties that are required of the county auditor are still in this document. The document has been touched up to the extent that it doesn't say county auditor, where it could be potentially investment officer. So if the court ultimately decided to delegate the authority of investment officer, the document, and even at the recommendation of the auditor, that throughout that document, auditor as the only individual that could do that has been cleaned out, and it's the delegated investment officer. But the auditor does still have those prescribed statutory duties that will not be removed with the contracting for an investment advisor or with the revisions to the investment policy. They're solid.
Which is consistent with what other counties who have investments do.
Mm-hmm. Right. Any other questions?
No, and I appreciate the collaboration between the auditor's office and the budget office. I know this will be really big for the commissioner's court and for the community to really make sure that we're getting those bang for our buck, honestly. But thank you for being watchdogs and the work that you all are doing together. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a presentation only, and stay tuned. More to come. In the very near future.
Item 8, receive update on capital projects and associated bond funding.
So from a visual perspective, this is the worst document you will look at today. We talked about it in our, Wally Hargrove from the Office of Budget and Fiscal Policy. Joining me is the Operations Audit Manager from the Auditor's Office, Mr. Victor Perez, who oversees and eats, sleeps, and drinks capital projects and can close his eyes and talk every statement to you. We actually talked about it in our team meeting yesterday. So we have a CIP team that is outside of the CIP committee, but it's an expanded team that looks at our CIP, our spending, and does a status update on a quarterly basis so we can make sure we're assessing where are we at with these projects. Is there anything we need to do to prompt any one office to get these projects continuing to move forward? I can tell you from 10 and 20 years ago, as much as sometimes you don't like the timeliness or untimeliness as things come up, it is moving in a much better position than it ever has in this county, and I speak from experience. Mr. Perez could chime in on that as well. But as you see these statements, one of the things we're going to give for the future is you'll get the detailed statements, because you certainly want to see if we had a $110 million bond issue where every $110 million was allocated, what the spending was, and what the status and balances are of those. But from a statement presentation, we've talked about doing some compression and giving you much more cleaner summary statements in the future. So we hope that this is the last time it's a worksheet kind of looking. It'll still, because it's numbers and it's capital projects, will have that kind of general look to it, but we're going to clean it up short and make it cleaner for you, but give you the detail as well. So a quick overview of the projects to give you a status. This is the item related to item 4 this morning, as you talked about the employee health clinic. This is the county share of the employee health clinic. $531,000 was allocated by the Commissioner's Court during the budget session. No expenditures to date. We have an encumbrance outstanding for the architectural overview that's taken place. Part of that expense is incurred in the general fund. The other part is in the health and life fund. Our current balance is $510,000. Let's see. Capital Project 16D, this is the issuance you had for IT infrastructure and the related systems and some park allocations that you made. So as you can see, the total budget out there outstanding right now is $4.1 million, only $19,000 spent. However, and this is a statement, all these statements are presented as of December. Mr. Perez in yesterday's meeting gave us some updates that there's been more activity in January. So in this regard, in December, we had $1.8 million encumbered. There's been 2 other significant encumbrances that happened in January that increases the encumbrances, reduces the overall balance, but each of these projects are on track and well on time and should finish above normal time constraints.
The $85,000, the $108,000 available balances are now encumbered also.
So those are now unavailable and have moved over to this column, bringing this closer to $2 million. You're seeing the largest capital project the county has had in the last couple of decades is your 2012 bond issue. That was a $110 million issue. I'm rounding up just for ease of conversation. Each of the projects that are outstanding were on top of any renovation projects, county equipping projects. If they're construction that are ADA required, the county jail annex. We did a sweep last year. So as projects were closed and we saw individual line items, if they happen to have something like this, $399 left over, we swept those and cleared those out. Yesterday, during our quarterly CIP and capital project meeting, we tagged about 50 more rolls of capital projects that we think are prepared for sweeping. And we've got about a dozen to 15 projects tagged that we're doing follow-up with the departments, whether that department's adult probation or juvenile probation or parks or public works. We're reaching out to them, doing a validation that those projects are done. We can let those funds go. What we don't want to do is let $16,000 go and get surprised by a $6,000 invoice that was pending in the system. So having the collaboration of purchasing, because they know what's in the queue and out there for RFPs, and if it's not an RFP yet, they know that they're working with the department to at least develop the RFP. So the collaborative team that's together, that process is working out very, very well. So this just gives you an overview of each of those projects. The material projects that will come before you here in the future that we need to discuss the possibility of clearing those out will be areas such as, let me see if it's down here, look for the East Annex, right here. So CP East Annex, which is the annex over off of George Dieter. That project is pretty much done, completed, but we're sitting on an allocation right now just over $1 million. So in our next, when we close out March and we do our next capital project review in April, and the team comes together, you'll be seeing a recommendation for small balance cleanups and sweeps, and even the large projects where Public Works has said, we're done. The bills are paid, we've confirmed that with the auditor's office. We'll be coming back to you to sweep those to be unallocated and available for future consideration. So I'm gonna close that one out. On capital projects, CIP. So this is the big catch-all CIP. Every year that we've allocated 1 penny of property taxes, that this year amounts to $3.9 million. This is the fund it goes into. As a reminder, by doing those out of current operations and not financing small capital equipment, every time we finance $4 million worth of debt and put that out over the average useful life of the type of assets that we're buying, we save between $600,000 and $750,000 per bond issuance on doing that. So if you go back and start saying 14, 15, 16, 17, that's $3 million in interest we avoided because we did it out of day-to-day operations. Really smart move this court committed 2 years ago, but we keep a down-to-the-penny reconciliation of where those projects are at. And so right now, you've got $852,000 that will be available for allocation when we enter the CIP 19. You'll be seeing an email come out. I'm actually working with Deborah Carejo. She's putting out one of her timeout trainings that she does on a regular basis. It's going to be the subject matter of that. It's going to be CIP, and your upcoming CIP request is coming. You're going to see the first budget email coming out of our office at the end of next week or the early part of the week after, but the first week of February, the first email is coming out on budget, and that's FY19 capital project request. So Deborah's getting ahead of it and saying, as you receive your request from budget, be aware you need to get some at least soft quotes from me. So get ahead of it. You know what you're asking for. Reach out to my team before you get the capital project deadline for the submission of your request for FY19. So the budget's right in front of us. It's right around the corner. The process is kicking off in the next 10 days. But it will tie into this overall capital projects. That $852,000, when your team comes together to make recommendations for FY19, that's one of the base numbers we always look at. What's available that has not been spent to date? This number out here in the far right-hand column, sports park funding, that's going to go away. That's going to move into the available column.
And
settlement.
How much is that?
Sorry, sir. That's $359,229.09. The settlement is over. All disbursements and receipts as a result of settlements have been received. Mr. Perez will be transferring the appropriate expenses out of the CIP that we said once the dust settles and the settlement's over. Those are going to go back to the sports park as appropriate sports park costs. So that $359,000 is going to roll into the $852,000, and we'll have $1.2 million available and unallocated for capital projects for consideration for the FY, for either the interim request that come up when the FY18 capital requests close. When we rolled out, and I'm super proud of this, but she pushed us real hard on that, so I'll give a big part of the credit to your county administrator. She wanted adoption of the CIP plan with the budget. That's the first year we've ever done that. And we're even ahead of this time last year, the schedule that you're going to see coming out. When we rolled those out in the second week of October, as we notified everyone, here's your capital requests that were funded for FY18. The deadline to do those requests and have that documentation in progress is March 26th. The deadline's coming up in a short 8 weeks away, or about 8 weeks. So when that deadline runs in 8 weeks, then our team comes back together with the purchasing agent, the county auditors, and the CIP evaluation team, and we do a regroup and we say, all right, 18's done, everyone's deadline should have been in. If we know we've got 3 projects that are in progress but haven't hit either this expenditure column or this encumbrance column, we're making sure we take those into account. We don't close those monies out, because if we've made a lot of progress but we haven't turned the key on the lock yet because something's in the pipeline, we're making sure we leave the funding for those projects that are in the pipeline available, because we don't want to over allocate and not have funding available to cover those costs. As I mentioned with the sports park, this project, when you see your next set of statements at the next quarterly update, this amount that's available, he's transferring that expense up in the CIP. This will now be a zero reconciliation. Sports park will be closed this year.
Well, if I can ask you.
Yes, sir.
We have an account, when tournaments come in and they pay whatever fees they are, they go into a certain account for the sports park.
Correct.
And this funding that we're talking about right now, that's already after all the legal fees have been paid.
So this is the capital construction and all related costs to that construction and improvement. From legal fees that were paid from the county for the most part were all out of the general fund contingencies, and that is exclusive and outside of this. This is capital construction and the renovations that were required as a result of that suit.
Okay, thank you.
And all reimbursements also that resulted from that suit. Our oldest order outstanding or projects is 2007 capital projects. There are several balances, and the Public Works Director, Ms. Norma Palacios, is going back and circling on these projects to give us the latest update on these before we take any further action. But she also wants to make, is considering making a presentation to our county administrator that if these funds were designated for outlying county parks, we've got some residual funding left over, she'd like to make a proposal to either make additional enhancements to those outlying county parks or reallocate those to other outlying county parks so that we could make some much needed improvements out there. Our parks, there's a number of them, but there's still some improvements that we need. So she's going to make a presentation, and that's going to come forward for future consideration if Ms. Keller agrees with that. So that is our capital project overview. You are now, like I said, the process is much improved. You're going to be seeing this now on a quarterly basis, and then we're going to clean the statements up even a little bit more so that everything totals and summarizes, but you're seeing just pending items. And we'll present you with all the details so you can see every dime that's been spent for every project. And I want to thank Vic and his team behind the scenes that have worked to keep these up to date and current.
And Wally and his team, they've done a really,
yeah, thank you.
A great
Sorry,
job.
Yeah, I assume they know that and they recognize it. Thank you.
I think in the future, we should probably also at least touch on this during strategic planning that we just wrapped up last week. I mean, at least having a component regarding, CIP and where we stand, so that way we can, plan appropriately, or at least, know what's coming in the coming fiscal year.
So, and what would be nice is by doing it quarterly,
yeah,
the commissioners are going to be so much more engaged and so much more knowledgeable of where we're at as opposed to doing it.
And we did want to do this meeting that we're having today the week before strategic planning. Unfortunately, we couldn't find a way to be prepared because we would have had to be prepared. So we talked about that, and we will work toward that. We can also, what we can do is on the draft plan you all have created so far, everywhere there's the dollar signs, go through and identify if there's any of these funds. But it would have been nice to know how much money we had to work with in advance. So
I mean, we did touch a little bit on. I mean,
we did,
on
yeah.
general terms.
Yeah.
But,
and if you can read my notes, you would see $ CP Vic ? So that, because like I said, I'm always, every time something comes up and Betsy or someone in the exec team says, or one of you says, hey, do we have any funding that's available for this? First place I'm looking is bond dollars, long-term, and Vic and his team are our resource to make sure that we're within the allowable uses within the bonds, but also where we have the money and we're taking into account anything that's out there so that we don't overspend. Any other questions? No? Great, thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Vic.
Thank you.
Item 9, receive a presentation on the PL bond collection project.
The last presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So one of my co-presenters are can't say co-counsel, I'm not counsel. The court, last year, as part of our strategic planning, one of our priorities was the PR bond and forfeiture collection process. What are we doing? What are our collection efforts? What's the processes? Are there any hurdles? And what can we do to start looking at effectively collecting on PR bond forfeitures? So I'm going to go over the overview, and Mr. Sosa is here to assist me with that. Again, in alignment with your strategic goals for FY18 under a financially sound county government was number 3. The required action was the PR bond forfeiture collection program. It is directly linked to your strategic plan, and it is goal number 1. Required actions were to research the legal background and authority, determine the feasibility, i.e. cost benefit, develop policies and procedures, and make this presentation to the court. Processes. So what I'd like to do at this point is let Eddie Sosa from the County Attorney's Office pick up these couple of slides on the processes and then let you know what they've come up with and how this fits into the overall process. If you don't mind, Ed.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Good morning again. County Attorney's Office for many years now has been in charge of the bond forfeiture process in the county courts here in El Paso. It's done pursuant to an agreement with the district attorney. The reason there's an agreement with the district attorney is these are considered criminal proceedings. Once there's a bond forfeiture aspect, the bond forfeiture proceedings are governed by the rules of civil procedure, but they tie back to the original criminal matter. It's a point I make because these are not just regular civil judgments. They relate back to the criminal matter. We operate under the authority essentially through the district attorney's office. The proceeding, whether it's a surety bond or a PR bond, is the same in the sense that it's triggered when the defendant fails to appear in court. There's a certificate that is prepared by the court to document the failure to appear. That document is forwarded to our office. That triggers our office in turn to do a certain amount of due diligence in verifying the bond, verifying the defendant, making sure we've got the right information. Assuming that all checks out, our people then prepare what's called a judgment in ISI, which is a document that we then present back to the original criminal court. It gets signed off on, and once that's completed, we go forward with filing that as a separate civil case matter, and then proceed with the forfeiture action itself. Let me back up with something and make a distinction. There's 3 different types of bonds that we deal with primarily, and the 2 major ones are either surety bonds or PR bonds. The surety bonds are the bonds that are issued by bail bond companies. And at this point in this county, most of those surety bond companies are backed by insurance companies. They get licensed, and essentially there's a whole vetting process to ensure that those bail bond companies have the financial ability to pay off the bonds, and they're required as a condition of their license to pay off the bonds. So most of the focus of the county attorney's office has been going after those surety bonds, because when you do obtain a bond forfeiture judgment from the surety, they pay. They have to, otherwise they will eventually be subject to forfeiture of their license. Those are essentially secured bonds. So when we are doing the forfeiture and it's a surety bond, we are not only dealing with the individual defendant, but we're dealing with the bail bond company that issued the bond, and they're active in that process. And so we don't normally take straight out default judgments. We do at times, but normally they're very active in protecting their interests in the bail bond proceeding. On the other hand, when we're dealing with PR bonds, those are bonds that are issued without any kind of security or collateral backing them up. We're dealing directly and solely with that defendant. And so what happens in those cases is, again, you've had a defendant who failed to appear in court. We send notice to their last known address as part of a normal civil proceeding to give them due process, so they have notice of the claim that's pending against them. They have a period of time to respond in court, answer. If they fail to respond within in a certain period of time, we are then in a position to go forward and set the matter for a hearing and take what's called a default judgment against that individual, which we do frequently. Since there's no one on there, typically there to represent the individual defendant, what would typically happen is we take a default judgment for the full amount of the bond, whether it's $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, and these PR bonds do contain that full range and higher than $100,000 as well. Once we obtain that judgment, we then prepare what's called an abstract of judgment, have that filed with the county clerk. That serves as a creating a lien against any real property that person may own in the county. If at some point in the future that individual is seeking to transfer that property, that'll usually be flagged as part of the property sale process, and there will typically be a requirement by the title company that they pay off that lien before they can sell that property. I don't know that we receive much in the way of payments as a result of those liens. I would say that's probably fairly rare, and I haven't checked it out, but just based on my experience working with this county attorney's office, I've not heard of any kind of reported situations where we're collecting on these liens. So I don't want to give the impression that we're collecting a lot off those filing of those liens, but that is part of the normal due diligence of just finishing the bond forfeiture process and registering the judgment with the county court.
Mr. Sosa, as I understand, those are the liens that hold for 10 years. After a 10-year run, we've got to
we renew them and then they remain in effect, but otherwise it will expire. So that's the process, just to give you a sense that there is a fair amount of labor-intensive legal administrative work that we need to do to track down each one of these bonds and obtain a judgment that's collectible. We also provided you with some of the case statistics. I want to put a caveat on some of these numbers. We're working off of several databases and we have different kinds of numbers, so I'm a little some of these things didn't tie together 100%. We're still drilling down to pull on these, so before you quote these or take these to the bank, talk to me, we'll verify them a little bit more. But generally, to give you just an overview, you've got about 16 to 18,000 criminal matters filed annually. We give you the split there between felonies and misdemeanors. And so that's the big picture of what the total universe is there. In terms of the number of bond forfeiture actions filed annually, we went back and looked at the last 5 years, and back in 2013 it was just under 1,500. 2017 it's increased up to 2,200 that are filed by our office. Again, these are the cases that get referred to us. We broke out PR bonds, and you can see that that's the area where we've had the biggest growth. 2013 we were only filing about 137. Last year we filed over 500. These are calendar year numbers, so I can't really give you what the projections are for 18 yet, but we're anticipating that's going to continue to rise for a variety of reasons. Some of those reasons are, we've gone out and reached out to the courts. These include the JP courts, and encourage them to refer the no-shows to our office, so we're filing more. If we don't get that referral, it won't get filed. But if we do get the referral, we will file it. So I think we're getting more referrals than we used to. And then I think we're anticipating that the courts are issuing more PR bonds generally as part of our overall program to manage the jail population. So we expect that number to continue to climb. The next shot gives you a little bit of information on, just on a very high level, on bond forfeiture judgments and collections. Again, we'll give you a 5-year period there. You can see let's take a look at the collections column all the way over on the right. Most of the collections are coming from the surety bonds, the vast majority, 3.9 million surety bonds. I've got to put on my glasses here. Another 600,000 in cash bonds, and virtually nothing in PR bonds, $7,000. That's about $4.6 million over the 5-year period. That's about right. We do about between $900,000 and $1 million in revenue off bond forfeitures annually. But again, the bulk of that is collections on surety bonds. The bottom box talks about we took a look at the uncollected PR bonds. The number had been reported that there's $12 million worth of uncollected PR bonds, and that jives with the information we have in our databases. Most of that is for bonds that were collected prior to 2013. Almost $8 million of that it was prior to 2013. That's important because as we look at collection methods like scofflaw, most of that is not going to be eligible to be pursued under scofflaw because it's too old. And so you see here.
Hey, on that one for scofflaw, the time we have to get it under scofflaw, it was a 2 year.
We'll get to that in just a second.
Okay, great.
You see that 2013 to 2017. Back in 2013, we had $461,000 worth of uncollected PR bond judgments. 2017, it's gone up to just short of $1 million. It was a little higher in 2016. I'm not sure why there's that variance, but that's what's happening now. We're collecting that volume, or we're obtaining judgments in that amount that don't get collected at this point. So if you wanted to project, we may end up generating $1 million a year worth of PR bonds that don't get collected. So that balance of uncollected PR bonds is probably going to continue to grow.
I think it's going to grow substantially since we're seeing the growth of PR bonds grow as much as it's growing.
Right.
And my fear is it's gotten to where people know they don't have to pay them. I mean, the fact that we've had so little in collections tells me there's a rumor mill that you don't have to pay them. There's nothing going to happen to you. I mean, just statistically, we should have gotten something in the last 5 years.
What drives that, though, is the process has prematurely ended. The process has never been. And now let's take that step to the referral to FRD process, and let us work it on the back end to start our collection attempts. So we're going to now, through the next course of a couple of next actions, we'll tell you things we can and can't do, challenges that we have, and how we're going to proceed.
Well, but let me go back again to this is a criminal proceeding. We're talking about administration of justice and all that. At the time the person does not appear in court, there's typically an arrest warrant issued. So these folks are not just dealing with, oh, I've got to pay, the penalty for not having appeared in court. They're at large with an arrest warrant hanging over their heads. So again, collections is not necessarily the high priority, and if they are brought back to justice and incarcerated, the likelihood of collecting is still not good. So it's just this population is not,
maybe the population
it's not likely that you're going to collect, bottom line. We were asked also to comment a little bit on the scofflaw process. Again, just to remind you, the Transportation Code allows the county tax assessor collector to refuse to register or renew a motor vehicle registration in 2 circumstances that we call scofflaw. If the owner of the vehicle owes money to the county for a fine, fee, or tax that is due for more than 90 days. Technically, these bond forfeiture judgments are not fines, fees, or taxes. They're coming out of a civil proceeding. So we look to the second bullet, which is the owner failed to appear in connection with a complaint, citation, blah, 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 in which a criminal proceeding is pending against the owner issued on or after September 2011. That's what we're talking about when we say anything prior to 2011, we're not going to be able to utilize the scofflaw proceeding. The other part of this is there must be a criminal proceeding pending. And so even for, let's say, that $5 million that was obtained on judgments within the last, or after 2011, you still have to ask the question of what percentage of these matters are still pending the original criminal proceeding. If that criminal proceeding has been disposed of, you can no longer use scofflaw, even though there's still an outstanding PR bond judgment. So we haven't drilled down to figure what that number is, but I'm sure it's going to be a substantial discount off the original $5 million. So scofflaw has some options, or there's an availability to it, but I don't want to overstate how much is going to be able to be collected through that if you were to even seek to utilize that process.
Thanks, Mr. Sosa. So
Turn it back over to Mr.
Much appreciated. So second action, determine feasibility, cost benefit. So from the front end side, at the point where the county attorneys has done their due diligence and complete their process, all appropriate abstracts, liens, and legal documents have been effectuated, filed, is we reached out to all of the stakeholders here. And the stakeholders that we met with, county attorneys, Joel with criminal justice coordination, we met with the administrative judges from district court, county court, met with the staff of and the appropriate team from financial recovery division of my office. We met with the tax assessor and his chief deputy from the tax office in regards to the impacts to scofflaw. We also, because everything goes through Odyssey and touches the system, had staff from IT there. So we had all the stakeholders in the room and talked about what are the opportunities, what should we do procedurally, what are the challenges that arise, and what are the associated costs to kick this off and get it going, to actually start the collection attempt process. So I'll start on the back end with IT. So scofflaw is probably the trickiest component and the most difficult for us to get the systems changed and get it tweaked to be able to allow us to do that. We're working on it. It's something we're going to have to develop into the queue. Of course, as you've heard Chris give you his updates, the queue is ever growing, and it's got a level of priorities in there. But we're adding it to the queue. But it's something that's probably well over a year off. Otherwise, we've got to kick another project that's already in line. And make an assessment as to where is the biggest return on this investment. From a time perspective, Mr. Sosa and his team have looked at what would it take to do that extra step to say, now we want to take this case and make a referral to FRD, get it into the system, get the appropriate notifications, and then turn it over to our staff. And they said on an average case-to-case basis, about an extra 15 minutes to a routine. So it's not anything that's cost prohibitive. So we think that's on their side, that's a fairly simple procedure to kick off and start the referrals to us. In fact, as we did this, staff that's in the room was like, hey, if you can do those ones, could you do these other cases? We're like, yes, we can do those, but I'd like to knock off one of our strategic plan priorities first. But certainly the financial recovery division, we're in the game of collecting. That's what we do. I would argue we do it really well, and we're always looking for opportunities to do it better. And so a nice side benefit of this may be that we're going to get even more referrals outside of PR bond, and bottom line is improve our financial condition, hold people accountable for the judgments against them, and collect the fines, costs, and fees that are due to the county. On my team side, the next step is going to be develop those policies and procedures. So that's the phase we're in now. Those court bond forfeitures, getting those referrals over to FRD. I've talked to my team and Derek and Sandra and his team below, their team below them. We're going to commit to doing it without any additional resources. We think our existing team can do it. But as we start to do this, we have to remember the biggest challenge is this all initiated from someone who failed to appear in court in the first place. So we're looking for the person who didn't want to come here in the first place. That's what we do. We're looking at trying to find people, using our resources to locate them, send out the notifications, put them on notice. Then we have another tool in our repertoire, and that is if my team does this 30, 60, 90 days, it's going to become part of the normal collection process. It's just another node or nodule out there that we're going to look at. But at the point in time where my team can't find them, no phone calls have been returned, we can't track them down, then we're going to go to our third-party collection firm, H&H, and now cut it over to them. They've got a lot more tools at their disposal, and this is their book of business.
And Wally, is that point, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is that point at the 60-day time frame?
No, at the point in time where we say we've exhausted our efforts, it could be 30 days, it could be 60 days. We might actually get communication, it could be 180 days from now. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to sit on it for way too long. If we're doing our normal routine, we're trying to identify numbers, we're adding them to our call program, we're adding them to our mail program. The difficulty is they couldn't find them in the first place, neither could the judicial system. We're trying to find them on the back end. The older cases, the number you saw out there, $7.8 million, that's pre-2013. Those, of course, it's going to be the rule of diminishing returns. We're going to try and go over everything after the criteria that meets that 2011 date. So the population is 2011 forward. But clearly, in the collections game, new business is good business, and it's the most eligible and the most likely money we're going to get. So I'd like to start working it from a current period back. So as we start the referral process, we get to kick this off in the beginning of the third quarter, maybe April, is we work those current referrals right off the bat. Those are the newest cases where the highest likelihood of return is going to be current. But our full intent is to work back. That's probably the highest likelihood that we're going to look at making at least a first couple of attempts on the old cases, 2011 forward. And if we say, look, after 60 days, we've got nothing on this, let's kick those ones that are 5, 6, and 6 years old off to the collection firm. Let's cut them loose.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yes,
and I
sir.
think you've answered it, that
Great.
we don't continue to search for these folks because we do have, in fact, a third-party collection
Absolutely.
agency that's
Absolutely.
working for us.
Right. And the big note there is, we have, beyond judgment and filing, we haven't searched. So the search is going to start. And I hope as we start to find these, we publicize it, and the word knows that these aren't dormant. We're going to do our due diligence to track these cases down and effectuate those collections to the greatest extent of our ability. Last part on this is I'd like to kick off the pilot program. The aggressive goal on this is to start at April 1 and circle back with the court after 6 months. I do not want it to eat into our current book of business. If it's detrimental to our current collections, we're going to make that assessment and make it quick. We don't think it's going to be, so we think anything that we're going to add into here. As you looked at it, last year's total calendar cases was 569. So as we look at it on a monthly basis, it's 1 to 2 cases a day that we're going to be getting on this. So we don't think it's anything volume-wise that's going to be disruptive to our book of business. With that, I'll go to the last slide. That's pretty much a wrap-up question. So stay tuned. There's more information as we follow. But the bottom line is everyone's engaged, from the judiciary down to the financial recovery division. All the stakeholders have been included. And in the very near future, in this fiscal year, that process is going to kick off for the first time ever in El Paso County. And we'll assess it after we do a 6-month pilot, see where it's at. Hope to have some reported successes. As long as their effort of 15 minutes a cases, and we'll gauge that. Well, let's say, hey, look, after first 3 months, how was it? Was it 30 minutes a case? Was it an hour a case? Because I've got to look at if it's becoming a drain on their resources and they're saying, hey, we're failing to do other things because this is becoming a time. It's important that they accumulate that time for us. We'll continue to engage IT as far as what the process is, where is it at, where is it in the program update food chain, and our tax assessor said as long as it's not disruptive to his business, it's scofflaw and it's scofflawful. Not a word, but it sounds cool. It's scofflawful. He's after it as long as it doesn't disrupt his business. It doesn't cause any undue burden to their timeline. But again, when we told him the volume numbers, he agreed. It didn't sound like anything that would be disruptive because of the 2 cases a day average.
Well, if I'm going to renew my registration, and I don't go to a county facility, but I go to one of the other contracted people that we have. Is it picked up by scofflaw?
Scofflaw? They run the scoff. I believe they run the scofflaw. I don't know. I didn't mention that. I don't want to say yes and be wrong. So I will follow up and I'll email the court what that process is. So I'll give you the answer.
Is there a benefit to us looking, going into this next legislative session, into adding criminal proceedings into the scofflaw statute? I know right now you said we're really limited.
I mean, that's a big conversation. There's a lot of pushback on imposing more and more financial penalties on. A lot of folks are going to say are indigent criminals. In conversing with the judges, I'm glad maybe this is a good thing to add into this conversation. They point out that even the state collection program requires that they consider indigency of the defendant and where they are indigent. There's waivers of court costs and fines, and it seems inconsistent that there would not be a similar waiver for bond forfeiture amounts. There's no legislation that expressly allows for waiver of bond forfeiture amounts at this point. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think introducing legislation that would expand the use of scofflaw for this would probably run into some fierce opposition.
Yeah, I mean, I think the trend is now, you know, trying to get away from, you know, causing further financial issues for people that are already indigent.
Right.
And I mean, it may have to be a more methodical approach where we say, if we were to add criminal proceedings to scofflaw collection, that at the same time we would also be adding a waiver for bond forfeitures as well, so that if we know someone is indigent, they can apply, they're exempt. But for those that do have the means to pay, that we would still have the ability to collect from them. But I mean, just a thought.
And if I can respond to Commissioner Stout's comment. So we're going to do that. So when our team finds an individual and is able to make contact with them, when we get them in and re-engage them, if we find out their employment conditions have changed, they became unemployed, or they're now part-time, they're not full-time, we engage in that. We make a financial assessment again, and if we find and they claim that they don't have that inability to pay any longer, or they need something reduced, we're doing those referrals to the judiciary. We're getting them back in front of the judge so that indigent determination can be made. In some instances, there'll be community service levied in lieu of those fines and court costs. In other instances, judges, and we had this conversation yesterday in a meeting we had with FRD and JP2 yesterday, the judge may come back and say, you know what, I'm going to cut that $500 fine to something you now can afford, or I'm going to lengthen the term of the payment plan. We're not going to do 24 months. I'll stretch it out to 48 months. So we're making those referrals on a daily basis.
And I think this is important, and this isn't a fee that was attached to you for this is, you were supposed to show up to court, you didn't show up to court. This isn't, oh my gosh, I'm poor, I can't afford the fee. This is your charge for not showing up to what you were required to show up for. I think we just need to make sure that that's not, we're penalizing the indigent. This is, all you had to do was what you were required to do to go up to court, and you didn't do that. And so now there's requirements. But I love the fact that everybody's talking. I think this is a huge opportunity. I had a big fear moving forward with going on PR bonds with this kind of lack of collection, because it just was going to make next year we're going to be at 14 million and then 18 million and then 287 million. I think we're doing the steps that are required to do what will make the whole reason we changed this whole system around, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, so when I saw that slide here on the growth from PR bond forfeiture cases of 137 quadrupling to this year,
right,
and especially spiking in the last 2 years, my turn was straight to Joel and saying, hey, is that because of your efforts? And it's absolutely. You know, our working with the judiciary and the consideration of PR bonds in the first place, but also the enhancement of the whole CJC PR bond process is absolutely one of those results that arise when those efforts start changing, the shift in the dynamics of just straight incarceration, you know, until your time comes up before a judge. So these are some of the byproducts of that, but it's a good process moving forward.
I'm excited to see what the next
we are
meeting will bring.
And I am not going to overpromise and undeliver. This you have to realize these are individuals that didn't come here in the first place, and some of these assessments may be hundreds, some of them may be hundreds of thousands, and some are very old. So
but we're also starting with the new at the same time.
We're fresh is good. We'll work back. All right. Any other questions? Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
And thank you to the legal team and everyone else I mentioned out there: IT, CJC, Tax Office, District Judge, the District Judge Marisol Mendoza, and Judge Staples in County Courts at being open, engaged players and getting this process kicked off. So we're real appreciative of that collaboration.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Before we go into executive session, I wanted to make just a brief announcement.
Yeah, we're taking a 5-minute recess.
No. I think the court had discussed that we would change our third Thursday meetings to the fourth Thursday of every month, and so I wanted to make sure that anybody listening or watching was aware of that, and I know that's brief your team potentially? Or?
Yes, sir, and we'll actually put an item on your agenda just to give public notice on a Monday meeting.
Excellent. Okay, just wanted everyone to be aware of that and not catch anybody off guard.
Thank you. Item 10, receive a presentation from the Public Works Department on proposed water rates for the East Montana water system. It's been requested by the interim Public Works Director that the site be deleted.
We're still working with the PSB.
Do we need to delete it?
Yes.
Move to delete.
Second. Commissioner Stout, thank you. Commissioner Pettis?
Aye.
Commissioner Dion?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Hagerty?
Contingent on getting a 5-minute break after this. Yes.
Judge vote. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, would you like to recess into executive session now and then
break.
take the break? Okay.
One
item,
there's
one
one
item.
item.
There's one item. Oh, yes, no, it's all right. I've gone twice. 3 times isn't gonna hurt you.
We can just take a very quick 5-minute break so that everybody take care of their personal.
So Commissioners Court will now recess into executive session at 11:54.
Commissioner Andrew Haggerty would like to invite you to his weekly breakfast meeting that takes place every Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. at Danny's Diner, located at 4690 Trans Mountain Road. Every week he has a different speaker who will be discussing topics of interest for the community. So if you live in the Northeast, West Side, or anywhere else in the county, come and join us for the breakfast meeting.
Don't wait in line, pay online. Visit the Financial Recovery Division website at http://www.epcounty.com/budget/financialrecovery.htm to make your payments online or find out more about our kiosk locations. We now accept payments on misdemeanor, felony, and justice of the peace cases.
Now watch Commissioners Court meetings on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and search for El Paso County Commissioners or El Paso County, Texas. Subscribe to our channels to see our latest videos.
Did you know that you can save money on the cost of your medications? And doing so is easy. In 2015, the County of El Paso launched a prescription discount card program from coast to coast. The cards are available to all El Paso County residents free of charge and everyone qualifies. You can pick up a card at any county office location, Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, or Target pharmacies, or simply print the card at www.coastrx.com. Happy savings!
Did you know the County of El Paso's Purchasing Department is responsible for ensuring that all items and services needed by various county departments are purchased in the manner required by the state of Texas? Whether through formal sealed bids or smaller dollar quotations, the county purchasing team is dedicated to finding the best contracting return on your taxpayer dollars. Additionally, the Purchasing Department is responsible for the tracking of inventory within the county and properly disposing surplus to public auctions. For questions about how to become a vendor and compete for county contracts, or to learn more about public auctions, please contact us at telephone number 915-546-2048.
The 346 District Court Judge Angie Juarez Barril started the El Paso Veterans Treatment Court program in 2012 for veterans and active service members that have been arrested and charged with a felony or misdemeanor criminal offense. To be considered for the specialty court, the statutory criteria includes be a veteran or current member of the United States Armed Forces, including a member of the Reserves, National Guard, or State Guard, and suffer from a brain injury, mental illness, or mental disorder, including PTSD, or be a victim of military sexual trauma, all occurring or resulting from military service. Call Sylvia Serna, Veterans Program Director at 915-546-2119, or email her at sserna@epcounty.com for any information.
Did you know that the County of El Paso's fixed asset control and inventory disposal is handled through the Purchasing Department? Throughout the course of each business year, the county holds live public auctions to dispose of aged equipment, vehicles, furniture, and other items that are no longer needed. To find out about upcoming auctions or to learn more about the county's inventory disposal process, contact the Purchasing Department at telephone number 915-546-2048. Commissioner Andrew Haggerty would like to invite you to his weekly breakfast meeting that takes place every Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. at Danny's Diner, located at 4690 Trans Mountain Road. Every week he has a different speaker who will be discussing topics of interest for the community. So if you live in the Northeast, West Side, or anywhere else in the county, come and join us for the breakfast meeting.
Don't wait in line, pay online. Visit the Financial Recovery Division website at http://www.epcounty.com/budget/financialrecovery.htm to make your payments online or find out more about our kiosk locations. We now accept payments on misdemeanor, felony, and justice of the peace cases.
Now watch Commissioners Court meetings on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and search for El Paso County Commissioners or El Paso County, Texas. Subscribe to our channels to see our latest videos.
Did you know that you can save money on the cost of your medications? And doing so is easy. In 2015, the County of El Paso launched a prescription discount card program from coast to coast. The cards are available to all El Paso County residents free of charge and everyone qualifies. You can pick up a card at any county office location, Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, or Target pharmacies, or simply print the card at www.coastrx.com. Happy savings!
Did you know the County of El Paso's Purchasing Department is responsible for ensuring that all items and services needed by various county departments are purchased in the manner required by the state of Texas? Whether through formal sealed bids or smaller dollar quotations, the county purchasing team is dedicated to finding the best contracting return on your taxpayer dollars. Additionally, the purchasing department is responsible for the tracking of inventory within the county and properly disposing surplus to public auctions. For questions about how to become a vendor and compete for county contracts, or to learn more about public auctions, please contact us at telephone number 915-546-2048.
The 346 District Court Judge Angie Juarez Barril started the El Paso Veterans Treatment Court program in 2012 for veterans and active service members that have been arrested and charged with a felony or misdemeanor criminal offense. To be considered for the specialty court, the statutory criteria includes be a veteran or current member of the United States Armed Forces, including a member of the Reserves, National Guard, or State Guard, and suffer from a brain injury, mental illness, or mental disorder, including PTSD, or be a victim of military sexual trauma, all occurring or resulting from military service. Call Sylvia Serna, Veterans Program Director, at 915-546-2119, or email her at sserna@epcounty.com for any information.
Did you know that the County of El Paso's fixed asset control and inventory disposal is handled through the purchasing department? Throughout the course of each business year, the county holds live public auctions to dispose of aged equipment, vehicles, furniture, and other items that are no longer needed. To find out about upcoming auctions or to learn more about the county's inventory disposal process, contact the purchasing department at telephone number 915-546-2048.
And you're on that.
Thank you. Commissioners Court has reconvened into special open session. That completes today's agenda.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you
afternoon.
guys so much. Myra, great job. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's all. I'll have to do with you later.